Antichrist. The morning star paradox, how Jesus, Isaiah, and a Latin word collided in biblical history. In modern pop culture and conventional theology, the word Lucifer is universally understood as the original proper name of Satan, a high-ranking angel who fell from grace due to pride. Yet, when we examine the earliest Greek and Hebrew manuscripts, we run into one of the most surprising linguistic paradoxes in textual history. The title, morning star, is used as a poetic taunt against a human king in the Old Testament, but is used directly to describe Jesus in the New Testament. To understand how a single Latin word evolved from a title of divine hope into the default name for the devil, we have to look closely at the original languages and the translation choices made over 2 millennia. 1. The Greek New Testament, Jesus as the morning star. In the ancient Mediterranean world, the morning star wasn't a star at all. It was the planet Venus. Because Venus appears in the darkest hours immediately preceding dawn, did it serve as a universal symbol of hope, signaling that the night was ending and a new day was beginning. The New Testament uses this astronomical reality in 2 prominent passages to describe spiritual illumination in the Messianic era. Passage 1, Revelation 22-16. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to give you this testimony for the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. Original Greek, Aster Lampros Ho Prinos. Literal translation, star, bright, belonging to the morning. Context, Jesus explicitly claims the title for himself at the conclusion of the canonical scriptures, framing his presence as the ultimate herald of a new creation. Passage 2, 2 Peter 1:19. We also have the prophetic message as something completely reliable, and you will do well to pay attention to it, as to a light shining in a dark place until the day dawns and the morning star rises in your hearts. Original Greek, phosphoros. Literal translation, light bearer or bringer of light. Context, the author uses phosphoros to describe the spiritual awakening and full revelation experienced by believers. Linguistic roots of New Testament titles. Metric details, original Greek root phi omega sigma phi or homicrons, generic root meaning light bearer, or bringer of light, astronomical reality. The planet Venus appearing before dawn, biblical context, messianic hope, spiritual awakening, and Christ's identity, primary occurrences, 2 Peter 1:19. And Revelation 2002. The Latin connection, enter Lucifer. When St. Jerome translated the Bible from original Hebrew and Greek into Latin in the late 4th century, he needed a Latin term for the planet Venus, the morning star. He chose the standard Latin word Lucifer, a compound noun formed from lux and fair. When Jerome reached 2 Peter 1:19, he translated phosphorus directly into Latin as Lucifer. Dies a luciscat et Lucifer orator in cordibus vestris. In the Latin tradition of the early church, Lucifer was not a name for the devil. In fact, early Christians even used Lucifer as a given name, and early Latin hymns praised Christ as the true Lucifer. 3. The translation shift, Isaiah 14:12. So how did Lucifer become synonymous with Satan? The shift occurred when translators connected the Latin Vulgate's rendering of the New Testament with a completely separate passage in the Old Testament, Isaiah 14:12. The context of Isaiah 14 is explicitly written as a poetic taunt against a literal human monarch, the king of Babylon. The prophet mocks the king's political arrogance by comparing his sudden fall to the morning star vanishing as the sun rises. The translation chain of Isaiah 14, 12 stage translation rendering original Hebrew text Helel ben Shahar, Latin Vulgate Lucifer, Qui main oribatis King James Version Lucifer, son of the morning. When English translators created the King James Bible in 1611, they left the Latin word Lucifer untranslated in Isaiah 14:12 and capitalized it. Over time, readers assumed Lucifer was a proper name rather than a descriptive Latin noun for the morning star. By blending Isaiah 14:12 with passages like Luke 10:18, popular theology turned a Latin translation choice into a cosmic origin story. 4. Comparing the passages side by side, comparing these key texts across their original languages, and Latin translations illustrates how linguistic overlapping created modern confusion. Scripture passages original language, text Latin Vulgate rendering intended context, Isaiah 14:12. Hallel ben Shahar Lucifer, qui main oriabaris. A metaphor mocking a human Babylonian king's pride. Peter 1:19 Phosphoros, Lucifer orator in cordibus vestris. A description of Christ's light rising in the hearts of believers, Revelation 22:16 Aster. Direct self-identification, as the herald of a new era conclusion. The evolution of the word Lucifer demonstrates how much modern theology can be shaped by translation decisions, rather than original manuscript meanings. In Hebrew, Hello was a metaphor for a proud Babylonian king. In Greek, Phosphoros and Aster Pronos were titles of honor applied to Christ. In Latin, both concepts were rendered using the word Lucifer. In English, selective capitalization turned one instance into the devil, obscuring the fact that the underlying title historically belonged to the morning star and to Christ himself. By returning to the original languages, we strip away centuries of conflated folklore and see these ancient texts through the precise vocabulary of their original authors. Deconstructing the modern mythos, how translations and tropes created the modern Antichrist. For generations, popular culture and sensationalized theology have leaned heavily on a cinematic narrative, a singular, hyper-intelligent, demonic world leader who rises to power in the end times to subvert humanity. From apocalyptic paperbacks to political conspiracy theories, the Antichrist is almost universally understood as a looming supervillain. However, a strict textual and linguistic analysis of the original Greek and Hebrew manuscripts tells a completely different story. The entity most people visualize today is a modern synthetic construct, a patchwork built over centuries by blending separate metaphors, historical taunts, and translation choices. 2. Understand how we got here, we have to trace these terms back to their original language and context. 1. The historical Antichrist, plural, present, and personal. The word Antichrist never appears in the book of Revelation. It does not appear in the writings of Paul, nor does it appear in any of the 4 Gospels. In fact, the term appears exclusively 5 times across 4 verses, restricted entirely to the letters of 1 John and 2 John. Mentions that many Antichrists have come. Mentions the Antichrist as anyone who denies the Father and the Son. 1 John 4-3 describes the spirit of the Antichrist. Active in the first 7, applies the term to contemporaries denying the incarnation. In its original setting, the word was a description of active first-century ideological opponents, not a prediction of a solitary world ruler thousands of years in the future. Comparative breakdown, metric details. Original Greek root antichristos, generic root meaning against Christ or in place of Christ. Original biblical definition, any teacher spreading false doctrine in the 1st century. Grammatical form plural. Textual scope exclusively 1 John and 2 John. Modern popular synthesis, a singular demonic world leader appearing in the distant future. 2. Satan and Lucifer, the evolution of language. A similar linguistic shift occurred with the terms Satan and Lucifer. Modern tradition often treats these as interchangeable proper names for the devil before and after his fall from grace. Textually, however, their origins are starkly different. Ash Satan Atn, Satanas. In the original Hebrew Old Testament, Satan is a common noun meaning adversary, prosecutor, or accuser, human enemies. In 1 Kings 11:14, God raises up a Satan against Solomon, referring to King Hadad of Edom, a literal human military adversary. The legal official, in the book of Job, Ha-Satan acts as a member of the heavenly council whose designated role is to test human integrity, functioning like a cosmic prosecuting attorney rather than an independent king of evil. It was only during the intertestamental period and the writing of the New Testament that Jewish theology shifted, turning the descriptive noun into a proper name representing a personified cosmic power. Lucifer, a Latin translation choice. The name Lucifer does not exist in Hebrew or Greek scripture. It is a Latin noun meaning lightbringer or morning star. Isaiah 14:12 contains a prophetic taunt aimed directly at a human monarch, the king of Babylon, mocking his political hubris by comparing his fall to the morning star fading at sunrise. The translation chain of Isaiah 14:12. Stage translation rendering. Original Hebrew text Hello Ben Shahar. Latin Vulgate Lucifer, qui main oriberis. King James Version Lucifer, son of the morning. When Jerome translated the Bible into Latin in the 4th century, he used the common noun Lucifer for the morning star. Centuries later, English translators capitalized the word, transforming a Latin adjective into a proper noun and solidifying a myth that was entirely foreign to the original Hebrew text. 3. The apocalyptic voice, rhetoric, and context. Understanding the original textual landscape also requires re-evaluating the intense apocalyptic language used throughout the canonical Gospels. Modern readers often find passages involving swords, fire, or division shocking when isolated from their Near Eastern prophetic tradition. In the original Greek manuscripts, these sayings reflect an apocalyptic Jewish prophet using intentional hyperbole to break through societal complacency. Analysis of apocalyptic sayings. Passage historical context and language breakdown. Luke 12:49, I came to bring fire. Fire, a standard Near Eastern metaphor for divine judgment, purification, and spiritual upheaval. Matthew 10:34, not peace, but a sword. Sword, metaphorical language, perhaps warning that uncompromised allegiance will fracture traditional patriarchal family structures. Luke 14:26, hate father and mother. To hate, an Aramaic Hebrew idiom meaning to love less by comparison or to prioritize one's calling above institutional duty. Mark 9:43-47, cut it off. Classic prophetic hyperbole emphasizing the immediate urgency of severing destructive behaviors. Luke 19:43, a literal prediction of Jerusalem and the temple, which occurred historically. When we strip away centuries of media synthesis, late Latin translation choices, and composite theology, we find a remarkably different historical and textual record. The modern Antichrist archetype, much like the standalone figure of Lucifer, is largely a product of linguistic evolution and cultural narrative assembly. Recognizing these distinctions allows us to read ancient texts as they were written, grounded in the language, history, and rhetoric of their own time, rather than the speculative fictions of ours.